So you're a little bit quiet and shy as well
Yeah,
initially.
back at uni.
Really? And now
Yeah.
you guys are doing this.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Convo Couch. Today we've got Greg Wang, managing partner of Axel Equity Partners. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Sam. It's great fun to be here. For all the reasons you and I are living in Australia, safe, stable place, nice environment, government's not too crazy.
That's good to know.
Yeah, that's right.
Like imagine Hong Kong. That's crazy right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So, the people go, okay, Australia as a overall sovereign place to invest and put their money, it's a relatively desirable place.
Okay.
It's Western legal system, all that type of stuff.
So yeah, generally like around the world, there's a pretty good appetite for like Australian businesses.
So I'm from Taiwan originally.
Taiwan, okay.
Yeah.
And then you moved here and you've stayed here for a long time now. As well.
Yeah, long time now.
Okay, so do you find like there are certain differences? I don't know if you still know much about like the market back at Taiwan, but do you feel like there's certain differences in terms of the appetite for Asia asset classes versus Australian asset classes?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know factually. Don't know factually.
Yeah.
I came here as a kid when I was 8 years old.
Right, okay.
Now I'm 40, so it's been a long time. Yeah. ABC, as people will call me. But I still, from a cultural point of view, I still resonate very strongly with the culture back in Taiwan, or the Chinese culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've still got family back there.
Yeah. So my dad still spends a lot of time back there.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you said you moved over when you were 8, your whole family moved over, like immediate family.
Yeah.
But your dad still travels a lot back and forth.
Particularly more recently. So we're very lucky as a family that my dad had the capacity to move everyone here. So 1988, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we, as a family, was very fortunate and lucky to have my dad being able to, be independent financially at that young age. So he was 42. And therefore, it's a long way to say he doesn't have a business reason to go to and back.
Okay.
It's more recently, he's an older man now. From a lifestyle point of view, Taiwan is an easy place for him. He likes the people, he likes the food, he likes the general environment.
Yeah, and it's good to catch up more often with like family back home as you get older as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And it's interesting, like you hear different stories about why people move over at certain points in time, especially like around the 1980s, 1990s.
Yeah.
So your dad thought like Australia would be a great place to raise the family. Is that the reason, or?
Yeah. I mean, frankly, it's not dissimilar to people looking at Hong Kong now and the Chinese situation, and Taiwan's on the cold face of that relative to Hong Kong. For Taiwan, there's no such thing as two systems or two country or one country or whatever. Taiwan is very much in that grey area as perceived by some in terms of does it belong as part of China or not. and there's that and it's very awkward, and there's, to simplify this, a lot of uncertainty for people, residents of Taiwan, including the threat of military, particularly back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. It was a relatively kind of similar kind of journey taken by people from Hong Kong, Korea, etc. that has come to Australia to find an environment which is more simple, straightforward, and safer overall to help raise the family.
Yeah.
In the US, my dad had a negative experience personally in terms of he was the subject of racism whilst he was there. I mean, racism occurs everywhere, so I think he was just perhaps in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So nothing bad happened to him, but he was on the receiving end of racism. And he just thought, on balance, Australia was a safer, more welcoming and friendlier place compared to the US, even though from his point of view, overall US might have been more attractive. He can continue on his business and whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad and also my mum were part of the wave in the 40s. Just like really testing my history. In the 40s, so they were from, I guess, the non-Taiwanese people. So they were from the Chinese movement during the Civil War in the 40s. That when the relevant political party got toppled over by the current government of China, the communists. So they moved across to Taiwan, and they were kids, 3 and 1 year old respectively. And for them growing up in Taiwan, they were unfortunately the receiving end a lot of racism themselves.
Right.
Because they were considered the non-Taiwanese people, and it's a little bit broader, but won't go into too much more. But
I always thought like it was the Aboriginals who received the racism, but no, it was the other way around.
it was right.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides. Both sides.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, and so they experienced a lot of disharmony growing up, even though, you know, everyone looked the same, everyone's Chinese by background or whatever. So they experienced a lot of disharmony. So that was one part. The other part is what we talked about this geopolitical tension and also the genuine threat of military back then in terms of some potential violence, etc., or at least the threat of it. And thirdly was just what we talked about as well in terms of when the middle class reaches a certain point and have the capacity to explore a Western opportunity for their kids and family. That's kind of the main three drivers kind of pushed us out of the country to explore other places. You might not remember, but in the 70s and early 80s, a lot of it was made in Taiwan. So
Yes.
Taiwan was the manufacturing hub. And in the mid to particularly the late 80s, that was the transition point in terms of people starting to recognize that China, together with China opening up economically a little bit. So that was a transition point around a lot of factories starting to be set up in China, a reasonable proportion by people from Taiwan. So that was a transition point for my dad personally as well, in terms of he was in the manufacturing game and he had to make the choice. If he wanted to continue to sustain his business and grow it, then he would have to follow the wave and set up in China.
Okay.
Or he, you know, starts to manage his business on a more steady state basis. Because to your point, you know, during the 70s and 80s, you know, Taiwan, like the rest of the region, was one of those economic tigers, whatever you call it, and everyone's kind of booming like that. So he ultimately decided to go the more steady state, and as part of it's moving the family overseas.
Had a bit of an early retirement and spend
that's
more
right.
time with family.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Did you sort of like look at your dad while you were growing up and saw how he managed the business and had an interest in business then?
No, as kids, we just found
ran
dad
around and
you're
played.
just scared of him.
Oh, right. Was he like one of those strict ones?
Yeah. So he was
Right.
he provided a lot of structure, particularly to my sister who was older when we moved here. You know, when I was, as you're aware, 8 years old, I was a kid running around. My sister is 6 years older than me. So she just started high school in Taiwan, and then she had to, you know, transition to Australia. Didn't speak a huge amount of English, so my dad was particularly strict on her.
Right.
So we saw our dad as well, someone scary or.
Okay.
But over time, obviously, he's just a lovely older man now. So we kind of segment the market firstly by size of businesses we want to focus on, and therefore what we've decided is that we focus on the small, medium-sized businesses. So very much businesses that have been around, and therefore there's proof of business model and proof of earnings, and situations where the original owner entrepreneurs may want to start thinking about de-risking a little bit from a personal financial point of view. You know, they've kind of put everything on the line for a long time, and also they're starting to think about ultimately what their succession or exit will look like.
So what looks like a good investment to you?
Yeah, so it starts with the person or the people. Yeah, so a lot of the times it's the drive and energy and the alignment of their intentions with someone like us. So one extreme is if the person or the group of people, if they're, you know, a few owners, all they want is the most amount of money for their business, and they actually don't have the desire or energy to continue to drive the business forward, but they really want to retire early, then as an extreme, that's the type of situation that we stay away from. If on the other end of the extreme, you know, they're very much still very engaged, very energized and excited by the prospects of the business looking forward. However, for good intentions, you know, they want to help reduce the size of mortgage they may have and set up the family so that, you know, they can, you know, be more financially comfortable. However, still have a lot of skin in the game to continue to be a net beneficiary from the future shareholder value creation. that's a type of situation we really like as the two sides extreme.
Okay, so you've never thought about, I guess, just taking like full ownership of a business or anything like
Yeah,
that?
no, because for us, I mean, as you said, we don't know how to run a business
Right.
anywhere like how the owners know how to
Yep.
run the business.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're professional investors, right? So I run our own our own investment business. However, we don't know how to run a different
The
type of
business.
business. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so we're very
alright.
much about backing the people.
How has that journey been so far?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, huh? So yeah, now we can see how expensive labor is in Australia. Labor in Taiwan also got to a point where it was a lot more economical or cheaper, to put it simply.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode in a series where we interview business leaders, tech innovators, and startup founders about their business journey, insights, and reflections. If you find value in this, please leave us a comment below, and also like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Enjoy!